Yes, sir. What is going on, y'all? Happy Friday, February 7th, 2020, and welcome to episode number 103 on the Coach Cool podcast. It is fantastic to be with you guys today, and I am really excited to share this conversation that I was able to have this week with Mr. Malik and Myles Amine. And these two dudes are absolute studs in every sense of the word. And I'm really geeked up for you guys to hear their story and what they have going on in their lives right now, which is the preparation for the Olympic Games come August time in Tokyo, Japan. Yes, that is right. They will be competing as wrestlers in the Olympic Games. Not many people can say that. And they're going to talk about that process and what it's like to compete and qualify for something like that. Myles has already locked up his spot. Malik is in the process of doing so in the coming months, and he is very confident that he is going to get that done, and he's going to touch on that as well. And just overall, an amazing conversation with amazing dudes, and really honored and privileged to have them on today. So let's lock it in. Let's learn a lot. This thing is going to bring you guys a lot of value, and we're going to let it rip. So again, episode number 103 on the Coach Cool podcast, Friday discussion with Mr. Malik and Myles Amine. Let's get it. All right, y'all, it is time to kick this conversation off, and I am really excited for this one today because we do not just have one person on the line, but we have two incredible men, brothers, and all around just fantastic people who are going to share their incredible story with us today, and I'm absolutely ecstatic to learn from them and hear from him on a Coach Cool podcast. So without further ado, it is my joy, it is my honor, and most certainly a privilege to welcome Malik and Myles Amine to the conversation today. Fellas, welcome to the Coach Cool podcast. Thank you for taking the time. I know y'all are crazy busy, so welcome to the show, fellas.
Oh, happy to be
good
on
to be
here,
man.
Yeah,
good to be here.
It's our pleasure.
No doubt, dude. No doubt. And like I said, y'all, to everyone listening, this is the first time we've got multiple voices on the line, so we're going to work our way through this thing. They might interrupt each other. They are brothers, so they probably know what each other are thinking already. So we're just going to let it rip, though, and we'll go from there. So, fellas, real quick, just to set us off, if you guys want to answer this individually, I know, generally speaking, a lot of it might be the same, but if you want to take turns just real quick to say who you are, where you're from, give us a little lineage in terms of how you've gotten to this point in your life today, and also what you guys have been going on currently. That would be a great place to start.
Yeah, older brother, kick us off. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go first. So you might not be able to tell the difference between our voices because we sound so the same. So I'm Malik Amine. I am 24 years old. I actually graduated from the University of Michigan. Sorry, John, but
it's all good.
Michigan,
I like that.
Michigan grad. So I was actually a 4-year wrestler at University of Michigan and two-time NCAA qualifier while I was there. But then crazy thing is me and Myles had this opportunity to wrestle for another country. So I ended up, I was thinking about ending my career after 4 years. I got into finance and business. And then all of a sudden my mom, talks about an idea like maybe you guys can wrestle for San Marino. And those people who don't know what San Marino is, it's a small republic in Italy. It's actually the oldest republic in the world. It's only 33,000 people. And I was like, wow, I mean, that sounds like a great opportunity, not knowing what the future would hold. And now here we are today, Myles qualifying for the Olympics and me having the first ever win for San Marino at the World Championship. So, wow. I mean, it's just been an incredible journey over the time. And there's obviously a lot of work that we've had to go through. Me and Myles have had to travel over there a few times, not knowing, what to expect. But overall, it's just been a great journey. And I know Myles can attest to that too.
For sure.
Yeah, I can piggyback off that. So I'm the younger brother, Myles Amine. I'm 23 years old. Still at the University of Michigan currently. Very unique situation, not only in the wrestling, but so I'm a fifth-year senior this year. I'll be graduating my undergrad this May from business school. But then this year, as Malik said, I had a chance to qualify for the Olympics from this for San Marino. by placing 5th at the World Championships. So I'm actually taking an Olympic redshirt because of that.
Oh, wow.
So spending some time away from the college season, and we'll have another year of eligibility for the University of Michigan wrestling next year. And so these past 3 years at the University of Michigan, I was an All-American in each year, so 3-time All-American, placing 4th, 3rd, 3rd. And then so I have another year left of college wrestling to, accomplish one of my big goals, which is to be an NCAA champ.
Yep.
And then as well as kind of what Malik was touching on is competing for San Marino because of my mom's lineage and my grandfather's lineage. So now also getting to compete, this August at the Olympics in Tokyo, which is kind of like a lifelong dream. No big deal, but
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's kind of still surreal. I mean, I'm not thinking too far ahead. I still have some really hard training and whatnot to go in between that. So, that's where I'm at right now. I mean, I kind of told we were talking about it, John, but me and Malik are gearing up for a big tournament these next 2 weeks, which is the European Championship. So it's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's a perfect start. And, only being 23 and 24, I mean, you want to talk about experiences and you want to talk about challenges. Touche, my brothers, y'all are off and running, no question. And you know what? We're going to get to the Olympic stuff here in a little bit, the San Marino talk, but I want to take it back just a little bit first and talk about how you guys got your start in wrestling. So in terms of, that start and when you guys started wrestling, what just give us an idea of how old you guys were. What were some of kind of your first memories of wrestling in general? Did you start when you were 5? Did you start in high school? Just what did that process look like for you guys in terms of getting started in this sport?
Yeah, so basically what happened is my dad let us actually play a lot of sports. Me and Miles were in a lot of sports, or Miles and I were in a lot of sports when we were younger, and it wasn't really required. And I don't think we knew that our dad was an All-American until about high school. He never told us that he was a good wrestler. So we basically, played every sport that there was to play, and it just happened that me and Miles, chose wrestling eventually. And I can't remember where we started, maybe like when we were 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
I mean, we got our butt kicked, of course, a lot because there was kids who just started at a younger age. But,
for sure,
over time, just developing and, growing the love for the sport. I mean, there's not any sport like wrestling. I mean, it's just, that one-on-one aspect with you and yourself, and then you against your opponent. So, I mean, me and Miles just stuck to that and, grew a love for wrestling, and obviously, are still continuing our careers today. So I think definitely the start for the sport, might have not been, at the right time. I wish we would have waited a little bit longer.
Okay.
Just to, be able to play other sports. Cause I think we stopped playing other sports about in like 5th, 6th grade because, that wrestling is just such a, full commitment that you have to make. So I think it's just a learning experience, when I have kids and when Miles has kids. Just now you're seeing a lot of large correlation of kids starting earlier and seeing a lot of that success, and especially in a sport like wrestling with the weight cutting aspect, it starts to wear on, kids in general if they have to cut weight and stuff like that. So it's just something to keep in mind. But for us, 7 and 8 is when we started. So I think it's still a good area. I mean, anything lower than that's just crazy. But
yeah,
I think Malik.
Yeah, I know Malik
there. But the only thing I would add in is that I think he's kind of, mixing up the numbers. I think we started at like age 5 in the living room, and we. I would say for maybe 3 years that we got some training in the living room before we actually went.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, and we had cousins that were the same age as us. Same thing. Like, we'd go to their house and we immediately start wrestling in the living room. As soon as we walked in the door. So that was our only other experience. But it was about 7 or 8, and then just kind of grew from there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we did not know what we were doing in the living room. We were doing probably a bunch of illegal moves, but
I love it. I love it. Yeah. That's how it starts, though, right? Whether it's playing basketball in the front yard or playing football in the backyard or the park, whatever. That's how it starts. That's really cool. Now, I know we got a lot of parents listening to this stuff. So I want your guys' perspective on this. You said you didn't even know your dad was an All-American till however old. He didn't tell you guys till later on. So what that sounds like to me is he didn't necessarily push this sport on you guys. He kind of let y'all feel it out for yourself and gravitate towards what you like. So do you think him kind of taking that approach in that sense allowed you guys to kind of develop the love for the sport on your own without somebody else kind of pushing it on you? Or was it something like once y'all did start wrestling, he really hammered it home and he kind of drove you guys to do it? What did that kind of look like for y'all?
So I think it's important that you give your kid the independence to kind of follow, the passion of what sport he wants to, go into. I know for me, my passions were all over the place as a kid.
Gotcha.
Like I thought I wanted – there was a point in time when I was in seventh grade.
Miles was a basketball player.
Oh,
yeah, I was playing basketball, football, and wrestling all together. I mean, I was literally
I love it.
Yeah, I was literally wrestling and playing basketball in the same season, like going from wrestling practice to from basketball practice to wrestling, right at one after the other, because I really just didn't know which sport I loved the most. And then eventually I decided once, I just naturally that, wrestling was when you win in something and when you're good at it, it kind of, a lot of times that can gravitate you towards that sport. And that's kind of how it was for wrestling. And so I think once I decided to commit to wrestling, and this probably goes for Malik as well, is then I think it was when my dad kind of decided that he was going to give us that helping hand to be like,
Gotcha.
Hey, I know a thing or two,
No doubt.
So if you guys need my help, I'd love to be there for you. And,
Gotcha. That's really cool.
But really he let us make that decision of, hey, this is a sport I think I can excel at, and this is a sport I want to, really commit to. And so after we made that decision, I think then he decided that he was going to get more involved and, do everything. And our relationship has always been, for the most part, Malik's going to laugh at this because it's like, we think back to probably some moments, but for the most part, our relationship with, wrestling and my dad being involved was really healthy.
Yeah.
I don't think, he obviously wants us to win just as bad as we do. And
right.
So, moments it can get heated, but it was all, from the heart. And I think that's important too, is that, you got to know that as a parent, you should be doing it for your kid. And not for yourself, like for your, you want to see them succeed because it makes them happy, not because it makes you happy. And I think that was a relationship that really helped, it added to our wrestling at that point in time. I remember this is a kind of a turning point in both of our careers was, we both weren't at where we wanted to be in high school.
Okay.
And, it was my junior year, Malik's senior year. And, we knew that we had a really tough road ahead to win the state tournament. Both had nationally ranked guys, really high top guys in the country to beat. And my dad kind of said, hey, I got to wait for you guys to win the state tournament, almost guaranteed, but you have to follow this plan. And me and Malik followed it. And next thing you know, we both were on the top of the podium in March. It was kind of a crazy thing, but it was like, that
wasn't easy. Definitely was not easy.
Yeah, it wasn't easy at all. And I think as a parent, your kid better than anybody else.
Yeah.
To say, hey, a coach maybe push him too far or, doesn't push him enough, but a parent probably finds that sweet spot where it's like, I know just how hard to push this kid to get maximum results. I think it's really important to keep a kid as a parent, if you're experienced enough to know, then it's great to have them involved, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let me ask y'all this: when he did kind of come to you guys with that, in terms of, here's the plan, here's how you guys can get to where you want to get to. Was it easy to trust dad, or was it kind of like a little pushback at first? Like, what, screw this guy, I know what I'm doing, or if you can kind of think back to those moments in time, was that an easy decision, a hard decision? What did that kind of look like?
Well, if you're thinking about it, I was at the point, senior in high school, and the maturity that I was at probably, in that mind, I was pretty, I'd say, like, at the mindset of a college athlete at that point. If it would have been earlier, I think I would have probably, doubted it a little bit more. But I think, the part of the part of maturing through the whole entire, like moment and everything, it was part of the process was just doing it. And we had to wake up at, I know like people, say like 6:30 might not be early now, but if it's 6:30 in the morning and then you got to go to high school,
Facts.
and then you got to go to practice after, that was, a big commitment for me and Miles. And, that's just part of the road to success that you had to take. So I think that buying into the system and knowing eventually that that's going to pan out. And I think a lot of mistakes, or the big mistake that coaches make, is trying to be the parent as well as the coach. So I feel like we didn't have that situation necessarily with our high school coach. We had Mitch Hancock, like you know Mitch.
Absolutely.
But he did a phenomenal job of just preparing us for the wrestling side, and we also had my dad who had offered advice for coaching, and he was a great dad. So I mean, you had the best of both worlds. It's just like you can't take the success. You can't take credit for the success yourself, because there's so many, people around you pushing you to just be your best. And I think that Miles, eventually found that success in college. I didn't do it so much my first couple years. I wasn't buying into the system, and I think Miles found that success and it carried over, and I'm starting to find it now.
Gotcha.
Just being able to buy in a system and listening to people that have been there before. I think that's just an important thing that a lot of parents might not think is important. Let the coaches coach and let the parents be parents. I think there's some truth to that. But I mean, we just had the beautiful situation with my dad, because he was also an All-American. So I think that it just set us up for success. And I don't want to say we had a leg ahead, because there was work involved to get there, but I think we did have that a little bit of a leg ahead, just because the wrestling knowledge that my father had, and Miles can attest to that too. Just the knowledge of positions and stuff that you just can't teach. So I think that's a huge part of our success, and obviously my mom too. My mom pushed us in the classroom.
Yeah.
So it's not just him too.
Gotta throw mom in there.
We're the men we are today because of our parents and because of our family. I mean, we have a large family. My dad has 9 brothers and sisters, and and my mom has 2 brothers. I mean, we just have a big family. So just having a big support system around you, you're just, the chance of you succeeding is a lot higher.
Facts.
I think.
Yeah,
especially if you have that support system. Yeah,
no doubt. And it's funny to mention mom, because I don't know if y'all remember this, but I remember way back when Barwis Methods opened, and I was training there at the time, and I think y'all were too. And I remember mom would come to pick y'all up, and she ain't no softie now. She was kicking y'all's butt a little bit. And I just think back to my parents too, with my mom and my dad. Like, it takes a village, it takes both, and all of those influences, no matter how big or small, they all play a part. You're damn right. And without those blessings, who knows where you could be. Not saying you wouldn't be where you be, but it most certainly helped.
Yeah.
And having that angle on it, I think is really cool. So shout out to you guys for that. That's awesome. Now, all right, so let's move on a little bit. Let's get to the San Marino talk. Now, you guys kind of alluded to it in the intro a little bit, but San Marino, Republic of Italy. Again, to be cool, I had to look up where San Marino was, because I saw it. I'm like, what the hell is this place? I figured it was kind of by Italy. I don't know where it's at. Like, it might be this small little island in the middle of nowhere. Like, I have no idea. So I look it up, whatever, population 33,000, which is damn near, a small city here in the U.S. About 22.
Damn near Brighton.
Exactly right. Yeah, Brighton, Michigan, Novi, Michigan. I mean, holy hell, what an awesome spot. But just talk about, again, you guys alluded to it a little bit, but how are you guys linked to that situation, and how did that stuff kind of come to fruition in terms of realizing that it would be an opportunity for you guys to wrestle for them?
I think. Oh yeah, you want Miles is he might be a little more knowledgeable about this, because I know you deal with Joseph and the Federation more than I do.
Yeah.
So I think you should probably take this one. Yeah.
So San Marino is Malik pretty much mentioned it, but it doesn't hurt to repeat it. It's a small, like Malik said, Republic in Italy that has 33,000 people.
Yep.
I mean, so if you're listening and you don't know about San Marino, I don't blame you. I mean, I probably couldn't name every country in the world, especially not the ones that have 30,000 people in it.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, so as far as an athletic country, they really don't have like a strong sports background. I mean, especially wrestling. Malik and I were the first ever freestyle athletes for them, international athletes. They didn't even have a wrestling program. So
Wow.
our link to San Marino, it comes from my mom's side of the family. Is my grandpa's 100% San Marinese, and he was, he took a lot of trips to San Marino. He was born in the U.S. Because my great grandpa, was very adamant about living in the U.S. He thought that it was a land of opportunity and whatnot. And so, it's crazy because my grandpa's 100% San Marinese, but he'll tell you to this day that, the United States is obviously, what he calls home.
Gotcha.
But my great grandpa was from there, so he immigrated, and the lineage is passed down through your mom. So,
okay.
If like for my brother and I, we didn't even have to apply to citizenship or anything. It was just we were born with citizenship.
Wow.
And when I was 17, 18 years old, I think when I turned 18 and Malik turned 18, we got to apply to get a passport. And it turns out that the UWW, the United World Wrestling, and the IOC, the Olympic Committee, require all this stuff for wrestling for different country. Well, we had it.
Wow.
It was like
luckily,
we got all this stuff for different reasons, and then the transition was pretty smooth. I mean, it was it's very interesting. So I can kind of describe this pretty quickly why wrestle for San Marino over the United States. So
yeah, please.
The United States program, I mean, I think this will clarify a lot of things.
Yeah.
That's probably what a lot of people are wondering. So the United States wrestling, first of all, is probably top 3 in the world.
Okay.
So I mean, it gives a lot of credit to the United States and how tough the system is. But one thing is they have like a crazy tier system. Like the number 1 guy at the weight class, like the returning world member, or the returning world, medalist, pretty much sits in the finals, and you got to go through 10 to 20 guys just to get to him, to beat him, and it just had a chance to beat him. And so you got to beat all these other guys that are, and this is in multiple tournaments, not just one tournament. So over the span of a few months. I mean, the Olympic trials are coming up right now, and it kind of sits at, it's just like a crazy tournament. I mean, it takes some of the best guys in the world like 5-6 years to wrestle for the United States.
Wow.
And Malik and I both said, hey, I mean, I would love it if I.
The only time we're probably taking the easy way out.
Yeah. If my wrestling career was really long, there's a lot of longevity to it, 5-10 years, then sure, I'm definitely wrestling for the U.S. because I trust, my ability, and I know that I can definitely make a world team. I'm competing with the best in the world right now, so it's not like, these guys are that much better. Well, then I thought, hey, I mean, I probably won't wrestle long after college. I mean, I just don't know. And, I want to wrestle the best guys in the world right away. I don't want to have to wait a year, 2 years, 3 years. So I want to wrestle at the World Championships multiple times. I don't want to have to worry about making a team every year and then wrestling in the World Championships. And so we just thought, hey, as far as for our experiences, as far as what's going to give us the best opportunity, it just made a lot more sense.
Gotcha.
And, I have so much, national pride in San Marino because it's such a small country, and, not a lot of people know about it to spread it. And same thing with the U.S. I mean, it's like, I was born wearing the red, white, and blue, and Malik was born wearing the red, white, and blue, and, I'm going to die wearing the red, white, and blue. So nothing against either country. I just, you got to do what's best for you sometimes.
Yeah, facts. No doubt. And what a cool opportunity to represent a country that has never had anybody represent them before in this capacity. Like, y'all are the first. Like, who can say that stuff and not just like sort of represent them, but potentially represent them in the Olympic Games? I mean, like, come on now. Y'all are so humble, and you're just kind of talking about it like it's whatever. But like, no, y'all might be going to the Olympics. Like, that is so incredible. Yeah. And I get goosebumps kind of sitting here thinking about that type of opportunity. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doing what's best for you guys and going that route. And that's amazing. So let's talk about qualifying really quick. So again, you talked about it. I know Myles, you have already qualified. Malik, you're still kind of in the process, but you're, most certainly going to get there. So what does that look like? Is it winning tournaments? Are they just trying to fill slots with certain people from certain countries, or, just generally speaking, what does that process look like?
So the sad thing about wrestling is it's kind of faced some adversity in the Olympics recently with trying to fight for 2020, and we eventually won that to stay in the Olympics. So actually now it used to be, I think, I might be wrong, but I think it was 18 qualifying spots or 20 or it might have been 18 or 20. It was a lot more qualifying spots in the last Olympics compared to now.
Okay.
So now it's the top 16 or 18. I can't remember, but it's a smaller number than it used to be. So now instead of placing, I think it was top 3 or top 4, because there's 2 third places in wrestling, because there's this thing called repechage, which if you lose to the guy who makes it to the finals, they bring you back in and then you wrestle through. So there are 2 third places. So I think how it used to be is if you took top 4 at the European Olympic game qualifier, you win. But now I'm, especially at my weight class, I think, Myles can agree with it. It's probably the toughest weight class. Well, it's not probably, it is the toughest weight class in the world.
Okay.
You have multiple Olympic medalists and multiple time world champions going at 65 kilos. So you have to take top 2, which is, I wouldn't say, an easy feat, but it's definitely possible. And I think that Europe is probably the strongest of the continents for wrestling. So that would be coming up in March, actually, in Budapest would be the first chance I have to qualify. And if that doesn't pan out, it might not. So you'd have to go to Sofia, Bulgaria for the world qualifier, which is everybody.
Okay.
So, and then if some crazy somehow that doesn't work out, San Marino has a pretty good chance of getting a wild card, because if you have less than, I think it's 15 athletes representing your nation, which San Marino only has 2 right now qualified, Myles, and then I think Alessandra Pirelli, who's a shooter, then you're eligible for a wild card. So I'm in a pretty good stance right now, and I think, obviously I want to qualify to get the jitters out and not have to worry about anything. So, that's how my situation looks. Me and Myles' situation is a bit different, but it's kind of the same. I think we're in the journey together. So, that's just my upcoming month. So a lot of traveling to nice places. So you can't complain. Sometimes wrestling doesn't put you in the nicest of places, but I think that we're in a pretty good standpoint right now.
Yeah, it's incredible. So, Myles, go ahead and talk about your stuff a little bit real quick.
So for me, as far as the Olympics and qualifying, it's just mine's a little bit more simple. So really the wrestling kind of, I think I mentioned a little bit about it before, but allows for 6 spots to be qualified, the initial 6 spots before all these 2s from all the continents, the top 2 at the World Championships. And I was able to go on a little hot streak right off the bat at the World Championships. It's kind of a 2-day tournament, but you pretty much find out if you qualify day 1 if you keep winning. So won 4 matches in a row at the World Championships. I wrestled. It was actually pretty cool off the bat. I wrestled this guy from Belarus who's multiple time Olympian and world medalist who I had previously lost to earlier in the year in April. And, avenged a loss from him, and that kind of just, gave me a lot of momentum to, move forward. I wrestled a guy from Cuba next, who was, a really tough opponent, and then Japan, and then Germany. So I wrestled, some powerhouse countries, right off the bat.
The German was Russian, though.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, that's a whole nother, podcast worth of discussion is these Russians wrestling for different countries.
Gotcha. So you already I gotcha.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And then that match against the German in the quarterfinals, I qualified by winning that match to make the semifinals. And then as far as the semifinals on, I didn't have the best performance, but I wrestled, pound for pound, probably the best wrestler in the world right now is Hassan Yazdani from Iran in the semifinals. So this dude he won the Olympics, multiple time world champ, and it kind of gave me a great perspective because, you know, although I qualified for the Olympics, and, you know, I'm pretty much set to go for August, I realized that there was still a cap if I,
No
you
doubt.
know, want to win a medal at the Olympics, which is obviously my next step. It's like, you don't just want to go.
Yep.
if you know, that's my competitive mindset. It's like, I got to win a medal there,
Yep.
you know, and gold for that matter. I mean, if you're going to go and you're going to try to win a medal, you might as well win gold. So
Damn right. Yep.
that's the guy I got to beat. I got a lot of work to do. And that was kind of, since then, that's kind of been just what I've been working on. It's just, you know, trying to prepare and win gold in Tokyo.
Gotcha. That's incredible. Well, to the both of you, yeah, again, man, that's a hell of a process. And I know a lot of people listening, like, what the hell did they just say? It's a lot of.
Yeah, sorry. It's kind of, you know, sometimes we realize we're not speaking to the wrestling audience. So,
yeah, no doubt.
Non-wrestlers, it's confusing. I know it's all confusing, but.
Yeah, but I just think it gives a little more context into the behind the scenes aspect of qualifying for this stuff. Like, I feel like you see this stuff on TV, it looks sexy, like, oh, they made the Olympics, that's so cool. But like, to hear the story behind how to get to that point, like, if you can provide more context to that, I think it just makes it that much cooler. So especially, you know, you're traveling to Europe seemingly, you know, every other month, whatever it is, like, y'all are doing it, man, and you're working your butt off to make it happen. And I think it just makes it that much sweeter. So that's incredible. Now let's talk about the style of wrestling real quick. Again, from a novice, from somebody who has absolutely no idea, for the most part, in terms of this stuff, like, does the style of wrestling on the world stage differ from that of the United States? You know, I know there's different weight cuts, whatever, but like, in terms of just the style in general, because, you know, for example, let's just talk about, you know, soccer or basketball. Like, you think about a European country in basketball versus the United States, very much different. Like, is that the same thing in terms of wrestling as well?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I think it's an own art in itself. I think that every, you know, continent and you know, I would even say every country has its own style of wrestling. I think, and then you go on down even further, even the individual, but definitely a different type of wrestling over there because. For those people who don't really know wrestling, I'm going to try to explain it the best I can here.
Yeah.
So there's freestyle and folk style wrestling, which me and Myles do. Freestyle, the scoring's different. It's almost like it's swimming. You know, you have the backstroke and then you have the freestyle. It's kind of like the same thing, you know, it's just a different discipline. Sweet. So these people have been wrestling freestyle their whole life. Folk style is only practiced in the United States. So that's what we grew up knowing.
Okay.
So to make that transition and having to, you know, take that, you know, gap of, you know, where we could have been learning is you know, it's like almost like a crazy catch up that you have to do. It's just such a short time. But I think the folk style in itself also, you know, taught you a lot of things. It's just conditioning. And I think, you know, I know Myles can attest to this, that Americans in general are just better conditioned because folk style is just so hard on the body just to make it through a collegiate season. You see people just drop off because it's just so tough. You know, that's just one of the things that I'm so glad I learned from, you know, college wrestling is just the grind of it and the training and everything going up, you know, to competition and having to wrestle after that is just like insane, you know, 2-day workouts and then you have to wrestle that Friday and get down to weight and consistently do it week to week. And it's just different. It's just a different, you know, it's almost a different world here than it is over there, which, you know, you can't take anything away from the Europeans too, because their technique is, you know, almost, I would say, flawless. I think that they're so good in just some positions that we've never seen before. And I think that's why Americans might not have great success right away, but you see continually the best U.S. guys do really well at the World Championships. And I think part of that is just the conditioning and the pace that you see. So.
Got you. No, that's a perfect analogy. And just from an observer standpoint, you know, I think obviously in this country, you think of football, you think of basketball, and all these different entities are tough. But man, when you look at wrestling, like the stuff that y'all have to go through, your training, your diets, your competitions. I mean, I'm just gonna say I'm glad I'm an observer because I can appreciate it. But hey, man, y'all can have all that because I mean, you want to talk about grind, like respect, salute. Yeah, man, and especially to go into a situation like you just said where you got to learn a whole different style of play. On top of all those other things, like That's pretty remarkable, man. And I think that's just going to translate to life once wrestling's over. Like, think about the adaptability and think on your feet and whatever. Like y'all, you know what? Screw this. I'm probably going to be working for y'all one day. So just keep me in mind once y'all are wrestling up, man. But no, respect. That's amazing. Now, I would love to get both angles in this from both Malik and Myles if you guys have an answer for this question. I want to talk about the biggest challenge when you guys think about this process and the qualifying process and just the opportunity to potentially wrestle in the Olympics. What has been the biggest challenge for each of you throughout that entire process of, again, just the competing and everything else when it comes to all that?
I would say, probably the biggest challenge comes from just, knowing that, or, just knowing that you could put in all this work and just not get the results. I mean, that's kind of how it goes sometimes. I mean, it's like, it's the same for every sport. I mean, you can put together a perfect training camp. You can put together months of, discipline and hard work. And I mean, everybody else is doing the same. Like, that's what makes wrestling such a unique thing. And I wouldn't even, leave that just to wrestling. I mean, that's how all sports are. Like, you look at like a game like yesterday. I mean, I'm a big football guy, so I watch the Super Bowl, obviously. And it's like, as a high level athlete, I see the game a little bit differently, even though a lot more about football than I do, but I'm like, I see that level of like in defeat when, and I know the work that goes into these guys. And I'm like, I know what kind of work I'm putting in. So these guys preparing for the Super Bowl, it's probably like 5 times more. I mean, maybe it's not as crazy of like work, but just the amount of time they're putting in. It's like,
for sure,
you look at that and you can still come out, with a defeat. Like, you're not always going to come out victorious. So that's a challenge in itself, just to like be able to put that thought away and say, it's all about the process. And I think that's what's given me my level of success and, clarity in the sport, is that like, I'm so process oriented at this point, man. I'm like, I mean, I'm just like, the results will take care of themselves. I mean, if I go 0-1 or, if I don't, accomplish what I wanted to at a tournament, but I know that I did everything and, my possible, circumstances to, achieve that level of success, and it's just like winning the gold. I mean, not necessarily, but very close to.
Yeah, that's so cool. You got anything to add there? No.
Yeah, I think, Myles hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's really not much to say after that, but
Okay. No, that's perfect. Now you just, now you got me going, because I just wrote about that a few weeks ago, and that's what I talked about in this thing, a process-oriented and process-minded approach to everything that you do. So when you guys think just your lives in general, and, obviously wrestling has taught you that approach, do you think that's something that you will try to, or you're already applying to stuff outside of wrestling, that process-minded approach versus just the results? Because what I found, and I've kind of been in athletics, my entire life. This is kind of the first year for me that I'm outside of the athletic realm. And it's really interesting to me to see how, when you get outside of that athletic realm, in terms of the approach when it comes to work or life or whatever, how it very much varies from that. And people get caught up in the result, and they get caught up in the challenge and not, so like, is that what you guys try to apply in your everyday lives too? Or, how do you guys kind of combat, thinking about the result for the process? Like, just kind of generally speaking, is that something that you guys gravitate towards just in general when it comes to life?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
go ahead, Matt.
Myles, you want to go? Okay, I'll take it.
Chopping at the
we're fighting for questions.
Yeah, baby, come on.
Yeah, so too many good questions, man. You want to take them right away. So, I was gonna say is, I think just like I said, just mindset, I think, is a big thing that wrestling taught me. I know I touched on it earlier, and I was a big fan of Kobe Bryant growing up. Rest in peace. He's one of the greatest basketball players, but I think he's just one of the greatest, human beings for any type of sport. I think that his attitude and everything that he stood for was just contagious. So I was a big fan of him growing up. So I think everything that he stood for, I tried to stand for. So if it was ever going into practice early or doing extra reps or just having that, assassin's mentality that he had. I wanted to do that in everything I did. And especially in wrestling, I wasn't just trying to beat everybody. I was trying to pin everybody, because that's just, that's what I wanted to do. And I just wanted to do the best that I ever could in anything I did. So I think that, wrestling is just one segment of it. And I think you see that in the business world, and wrestlers just being super successful in anything they do is because they learn that from wrestling, just the discipline that you have to have, and just the effort that it takes to be, great at the sport, and not just great at the sport, just have the work ethic of a wrestler. Is a chore of it. I wouldn't say chore. I would take that back. I'd say that it's honestly an opportunity to just do great in everything that you do. And I think that wrestling's not for everybody. It's a tough sport, and every level is a cutoff. There's high school, there's college, and there's international. But I think in any level of wrestling, you're going to take something away, rather if it's middle school, high school. I think you see a lot of these fighters now, UFC fighters, a lot of them were wrestlers. I think it's just a special sport. And I think that if you're a parent, you're listening to this, I wouldn't hesitate to, put your kids in wrestling. It's going to, unless, I'm not a big advocator for putting them in super young, but I think that, middle school level is definitely the right time to start it. And if they pick up the love for it, I think that's great. And if they don't, they at least take away stuff are life lessons that they'll be able to hold with them for life. So
I got you.
Yeah. And really quick on the process oriented thing, that's the one thing I wanted to touch on. I think, the most important thing with being process oriented is you have to be self-motivated, and you have to be a hard worker. I think, results still matter, in my opinion. I think you can be process-oriented if you're willing to put in that work. I mean, because I think what happens to a lot of people that are self-motivated and people that are really hard workers is the problem is not that they're not putting in the right work. It's that there's so much competition anxiety that's why they're not getting the results. So that's the importance of being process-oriented. And carrying that forward into your career, it's the same thing. It's like, I mean, eventually you should be seeing results if you're process oriented, right? Like, there shouldn't be a gap of like you're process oriented for 5-10 years and you're just always average. Like, I mean, then
that
maybe,
doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I think that maybe you've got to reevaluate, your process and say, okay, maybe I'm not working hard enough. But I think that's a really important note to add in about, the whole process oriented is like, you got to be self-sufficient and self-motivated in order to think that way. I think that's the problem with those kind of people is that they almost become too obsessed with the results, and that's why it affects them. It's not because they're not working hard enough.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. And they almost identify with that stuff. Like if I don't find the result, that's where they place their.
Yeah, that's who I am. Right?
Exactly right.
Oh, yeah.
So if you fall short of that, then, who am I? What am I about? Well, no, if you're more about the work that you're putting in to become that, to me, that's what it's really about. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole reasoning behind that stuff. No doubt. Well, I love that, man. Y'all got me ready to go fight or something, to go work out or, get oh shit. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, fellas, last question I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to leave y'all with this. And the question is this: when you guys think about the Olympic Games, and, I know we're kind of joking, bantering back and forth, but, in all seriousness and in all reality, you guys have an opportunity. Myles, you've already locked it in. Malik, you're going to get there. You could potentially be competing in the Olympic Games. I mean, I'm talking 99.99999% of people will never get a chance to say that. But you guys are in this spot today because of the work that you put in. Obviously, the people around you have helped you get to this point, but that's on y'all. Y'all put in that work. You guys have done all that, and that's absolutely remarkable. So when you guys, again, I know you're kind of entrenched in the process right now, and you just focus on the work you're trying to put in. But when you take a second to think about it and that opportunity that lies ahead, what kind of feelings come to mind? What kind of emotions, kind of overtake you when you guys think about having that opportunity to compete in the Olympics for a country, especially like San Marino, where stuff is very limited there. Like, that is so cool. How does that make you guys feel?
So I think that it's the crazy thing is you don't appreciate something until it happens. I think that it's just, how we are in life. And I think it might be, how me and Miles are as human beings. I think, once something happens is when you start to appreciate it. And I think, just looking back at the world championships and doing looking back at both of us, what we accomplished is, in of itself, a huge accomplishment. And, the Olympics is even a bigger deal. And I know Miles and I have really high expectations for ourselves, but I mean, even being there at the end of the day is just surreal. And I think that it's just not big for us, but for the country of San Marino, our parents, and, everybody just who have seen us grow over the years. And, I'm just a firm believer in just giving gratification and just appreciating what you have. So I'm just happy to be at the point that I'm at right now, and anything else is just extra. So, I mean, obviously I want to be an Olympian and I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. I think, everybody does. And just when it's all over, it's just going to be able just to appreciate the things that wrestling taught me. And, the moments that I get to spend with my brother and doing this with him and my teammates. And I think that's what I'll cherish the most, not necessarily the big names, the Olympics, the European games, the world championships, all that stuff is great. But, the memories that you share with the people that, you love and that you care about, I think is the most important. And then that's what you're going to hold close to your heart at the end of the day. So I know Miles might have a different perspective, but that's my perspective on it. So.
I love it. Yep. Go ahead, Miles.
No, I think I'm very similar to what I feel very similar to how Malik feels. I mean, obviously, being qualified and whatnot, like I said, now it's like I am a what's next kind of person, but I don't let that define me. It's just kind of what keeps me on track.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it keeps me on track, so that I don't get too complacent. I mean, I think I've always been that way, and I think, so obviously my next goal is, win an Olympic gold medal, but when it comes back down to it all, like Malik said, I mean, it's really just enjoying the process, the experience. I mean, the Olympic Games going forward. So like my thoughts on it are kind of like Malik said, you don't know what to expect until you're there.
Right.
I mean, if people ask me this all the time, I mean, because I mean, it's obviously pretty unique that I qualified for the Olympics. So I've had people ask me like, you're going to the Olympics, aren't you excited? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but it's in
so true.
It's in 8 months from now. I mean, like, what do I still got to live day to day.
Yep.
I can't just be like living these next 8 months like, I'm going to the Olympics in 160 days now, 159. Like, it's like once it approaches and once it's a few weeks out, then I think I'll start to feel those jitters and those,
I got you.
Those nerves kicking in. Like, man, this is actually real. I'm competing at one of the peak of sport.
Right.
But until then, it's like like I said, hey, process oriented. I still got a lot of work to be done.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
So
that's
it.
Just Miles. That's just kind of who he is, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
he's a guy who's just never satisfied, and I think that's what makes him so successful. Is he, might win a bronze medal, but in somebody else's mind, that might be the best thing that's ever happened. But in his mind, he wants to win gold, and I think we both share that trait. But he's definitely a guy who is worth, sorry, let me rephrase that. Is a guy that's, I'm trying to think what to say. I have when it's on my tongue.
You don't have to gas me up. It's okay.
He's a process-oriented guy, and he's waiting for the, what do they call that? Gratification. Delay of gratification. That's what I'm thinking of.
I love it.
Yeah, he's okay with waiting, however long it is, 120 days until the Olympics, where people, if they don't see results right away, they give up. And I think that's what makes, Miles such a special wrestler. Is just he's okay to go back to the drawing board and figure out what he did wrong. He's not the type of the guy that gives up. And I'm not going to say I'm not either, but that just makes him so successful. So
right. No, that's absolutely incredible.
He's done gassing me up now.
Well,
once Malik qualifies, we're gonna qualifies, we're gonna do the call back, and I'm just gonna talk him up the whole time.
There you go. Well,
that's
so
great.
Cool.
That's great.
Yeah, and how you guys kind of have each other to support each other through that process, and all that you've been through, and obviously challenge each other and get pissy at each other and whatnot. But what a remarkable situation that y'all are in. And you know what, fellas, I'm going to wrap it up there. And I'm just sitting here, trying to learn from y'all, because I think that approach and what I try to do with this podcast and the perspectives that I try to take on, y'all took the words right out of my mouth, and y'all are actually living that. You're not just voicing it or preaching it. You guys are living examples of what is going on there. So you guys very much have a fan in me. I cannot wait to see what you guys have in store as y'all move forward. We'll certainly keep tabs on each other. But Malik, Myles, I really appreciate you guys. I learned so much from that conversation, and wishing you
thanks.
the best. Love y'all. Y'all are my brothers. I know we haven't had too much interaction, but whether it's from CC or stuff like this.
Yeah, hey, I got a final note that I wanted to just to shout out a part of all of us,
Okay.
Me and John, you're included in on this, is I'd be remiss to not mention Detroit Catholic Central as our connecting bond that probably had a positive impact on all three of our lives, is just going to that school.
Yes.
I know you, John, you won a Division I state title, right, for football your senior year.
Sir. Yep.
And and Malik and I both had the opportunity to win state titles there, and I think it just shows, no matter what sport, I mean, they've been so dominant. It's like they're doing something right over there. And I would say between the football, wrestling, or whatever it is at that school, they just teach you the same stuff we've been talking about this whole podcast.
It doesn't matter.
Right?
Facts.
Yeah, same stuff we've been talking about this whole podcast of hard work and commitment and stuff. So shout out Detroit Catholic Central. I got to do that before.
Yeah, you got to shout out
before we hang up this call.
No doubt. I love that. It certainly played a part in my life, and I'm still living it out today. I'm still learning, whether it's Mr. Babbitts or Coach Mack or watching Coach Hancock walk around the halls scared to hell, just scared as hell walking that guy, whatever it is, man. It's just something about that spot that makes you want to yearn for more and work for more, no question.
Something in the water.
Damn right. They got something going on.
Yeah, there's something in the water.
Oh, man. But you know what, y'all? Again, I'm going to leave you guys with that. I appreciate you guys so much. That's awesome. And you guys have a fantastic evening, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us on.
Appreciate you, brother.
No doubt,
anytime.
Absolutely. We'll have to run it back once the Olympics are over and see what's up. No doubt.
Hopefully good vibes.
There you go.
A little recap.
I love that. Well, to everybody else out there, that's going to wrap up another week on the Coach Cool podcast. And if that conversation doesn't gas you up and geek you up a little bit, I don't really know what will. And, I speak about the process. I speak about all these different things on there. And to hear these guys like Malik and Myles talk about that stuff and how they're living it in their everyday lives and at the highest level, not just through some BS way, but, on their path to the Olympic Games. I'm not one to say that one size fits all. But when you look at those approaches and the success that they're finding in doing so, I don't think there's any secret as to why they're at where they're at. So I hope you guys can learn something from that today, that you found value in that conversation. And I'm really looking forward to this weekend and then being back here with you guys on Monday to keep this ball rolling. Okay. So this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, find some challenge, find some perspective, count your blessings. And as always, God bless you all. Coach Koob. Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and just listening to the podcast in general. It means the absolute world to me that you guys choose to take time out of your day and your busy lives to listen to me and the perspectives that I offer and the challenges that I give out and the conversations with the guests that I have on this show. And I very much hope it's bringing some sort of value into your life and you're finding benefit from these conversations and from these perspectives. And if you are one of those people, whether you've listened once or you've listened to all the episodes, I'm going to ask you right now, if you feel so compelled, to leave a rating and to leave a review, whether it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or however you choose to listen to this show. I would very much appreciate that, because that's how growth happens. That's how I can continue to learn and understand this thing from your guys' ears, not just my mouth, but make this thing more of a two-way street. And the more ratings and the more reviews we get, the bigger growth we can find and the more people we can reach with this thing as well. So again, if you feel so compelled, if you feel like this thing has brought value, I would very much appreciate that. Okay. But with that, I'm going to leave you guys for the day. And as always, I really, really appreciate you guys, and God bless. Coach Coop.